sound weird. And then what turned me on to it was, oh crap! Now I'm not going to remember the name of the restaurant.
I was gonna say this sounds like an
Ah,
interesting confession coming.
no,
I
no, no,
know.
no.
You may
Oh
want to
God,
turn
what
the
is?
microphones off.
Yeah, we're gonna take this
No,
off of live real
I can't.
quick.
What's the name of? God, it's right on the tip of my tongue. What's the name of the restaurant? It's got a huge freaking menu, all different types of
The
food.
Cheesecake
Cheesecake
Factory.
Factory.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So
All you had to do was say huge freaking
I
menu,
know
and we
that's
all knew
great.
it.
That's great. But they would only serve their coffee in a glass mug, and for
Yeah.
whatever reason, that changed coffee for me. I
Oh,
drink my coffee now when when possible. I've got a nice set of
And
glass mugs, real heavy
yep,
duty, thick glass
I do
mugs at
too.
the house. And I don't know what it is about drinking my coffee out of a glass mug, but in my head, it triggers something and it tastes that much better.
There's something about it that, to your point, that just makes it taste better. And I don't know if it's just
Yeah,
well,
the
it's like,
ambiance of it, or you feel
maybe.
like maybe a little bit higher class than probably what at least I am.
well,
I don't know.
it's the difference between having a Coke out of a Coke bottle in a can, right?
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
remember the glass
It's the diff-
bottles?
but
Yeah.
really,
It's
it's the difference between having a draft beer and a bottle beer. That's the difference.
yeah, yeah. Something about that glass. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems to taste better. I'm sure it's all in my head, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I don't have a glass mug here at work. I've
I don't
got
know. I
porcelain.
definitely think the vessel you drink out of, whether it's a Yeti with water or something,
Yeah.
definitely gives a different flavor to it.
Yeah, I've got bourbon cups, and they're made out of oak.
Yep.
ooh,
Yeah.
And you line the inside with was it beeswax, some type of beeswax or honey wax, and
mm.
that keeps all the little nooks and crannies sealed. But you drink some bourbon out of that, I don't know, it takes on a slightly different flavor. It's pretty good.
It's a different.
Is it
It's
kind
a,
of
it's a
is
completely different drink at that
it
point.
like
Yeah,
a little
I've had it a
smoky?
few times.
so cool.
Is it like a little more smoky?
Yeah, it does bring out a little bit more of the smoky flavor. Yeah, yeah. You can look them up. A lot of them are just they're handmade. But I got my good friend Tim. We got a set, and I introduced him to it, and now he drinks all of his bourbon out of these little wooden cups.
Very interesting.
All right, 5 seconds.
All right.
Well, hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
What's happening?
It's on now.
Bring it.
Yeah.
The party has started.
So, kick things off. We got a little announcement to make. So, we've partnered with NIADA to help
Yeah.
bring more of their content to the greater automotive industry. And
Mm-hmm.
this is the kickoff Refresh Friday for it. So, Jeremy and Ben, you're going to have to answer a lot of questions about NIADA this time.
Love it. Bring it on.
If you could, guys, do you mind introducing yourselves?
Yeah. So I'm Jeremy Beck. I'm the vice president of dealer development for NIADA, and super excited. For those of you who don't know, NIADA is the National Independent Automobile Dealers Association. I've been in. I guess you could probably consider myself a industry veteran now. I've been in the industry, in the auto industry, for 25 years, and started selling used cars way back in the day. Been on the franchise side quite a bit, been on the independent side as well as the provider and vendor side and partner side, and certainly now on the association side. And super excited about being within IEDA, and super excited about the partnership and the sponsorship with Dealer Refresh.
Yeah, couldn't say that more. Really appreciative of the partnership with Dealer Refresh, guys. So thanks a lot for that. And so my name is Ben Goodman. I'm a senior moderator, consultant, trainer with NIADA. I've been in the subprime space for 30 years. I've earned every single gray hair you see on my head. It's been in the I actually specialize on the buy here, pay here side. So I worked for JD Byrider now for a little bit over a decade, and I've been with NIADA as a moderator for a little bit over a year. I'm happy to be here. So thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
So Ben, could we
Got
say,
it.
since you're running 20 groups and training dealers, that you're a professional cat herder?
uh, no, it's not like that at all.
No, not at all.
Never
Yes, sir.
heard a swear word. Never.
No, it's very professional. Everybody's on point, on target. No, these guys are great, man. I work in all seriousness. I work with some really, really smart folks in these 20 groups, and I'm super excited about it. Yeah.
He has a
What's
swear jar. He has a swear jar at every one of his moderator or at every one of his 20 group meetings,
It
and
would
it
be a swear.
never gets filled. I don't know why.
It would be a swear
yeah, right.
bucket.
What's the history of NIADA? Where how'd it come about?
Yeah, so I think similar to NADA, which obviously is a very well known name, NIADA was born really out of the vision and out of the mission of supporting the independent used car dealers that aren't associated with an OEM. We were talking earlier before the podcast started that there's about between 40 and 45,000 actual independent dealers out there, and that's when you take out. There's about 90,000 used car dealer license when you look at the entire United States. But when you actually drill it down to what is a true dealer, a true used car dealer, has a lot, is retailing vehicles, is marketing to direct to consumer. It's about somewhere between 40 and 45,000 different dealers, and there was a true desire to really kind of ensure that the independent dealer had a forum and had an association that could go and benefit their dealers, but also benefit them on the legislative front, benefit them with vendors and with partnerships. There's so much, as you know, what NADA does. We duplicate that for the independent dealer at NIADA. We work hand in hand with NADA a lot on our lobbying efforts because so much of what happens in Washington or doesn't happen in Washington, depending on how you look at it, really affects both, the franchise stores and the independent stores. So it was really just truly born out of independent dealers needing a voice and needing a space where they could go to get consulting, to get best ideas, best practices, lobbying efforts, as well as training and consultants and consultancy to be able to increase their viability and increase their profitability.
Yeah, and you think about it. I think we were back in 1946 is when
Yeah.
NIADA was founded, and
Okay.
you think about the independent dealer. Independent dealer, in most cases, is a single point dealership in a community somewhere. Employs anywhere from maybe 5 to 30 employees, right? Kind of a smaller footprint when you look at it from an independent dealer perspective. And what I think is great about the association is that we're able to go to Washington and let the legislators understand just how big we really are and just how many
Right.
people we employ nationally. We're not
Huge.
just
Yeah.
we're not just that independent guy in small town communities. We're a national association. We have a voice and we have some power when it comes to that. And we're doing a lot of really good we're very beneficial in our communities. We're doing a lot of really good things for our consumers, and having a place to be able to kind of voice that in Washington, very important.
Yeah, and I piggyback off of the voice in Washington. We are just coming off of our national policy conference. Our national policy conference is held in Washington D.C. Every year, minus a couple of years due to COVID. And it's where we, bring in the FTC, bring in the CFPB. We had Director Chopra as a presenter at our national policy conference. We had the FTC rulemakers talking about the FTC proposed rules. We had congressmen and women and senators, and it the the overall mantra from a lot of them as we continue to engage them with our entire legislative affairs a division of NIADA is, that we really are a force in the economy, and they want to hear from us. They want to know what is impacting us. They want to know how we can do things better, how they can do things better. Whether or not they do it, we can argue left or right, right? But but we can certainly, I can
What?
certainly say that
Wait a
they
minute.
are willing to hear. I know, shocking. Much like the swear jar at your moderator or at your 20 groups.
Right.
But they at least want to hear us. They're at least allowing us to have the conversations and facilitating meetings on the Hill. It's really just a massive voice that the independent dealer has certainly on Washington and facilitated through NIADA.
Look, right
I
now
have a
there's
yeah.
16 to 18,000 new car dealers who are basically independents without new cars to
Right.
sell. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I live in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and I drive by all of these massive car dealerships that used to be just packed full of new cars, and now what you see on their front line, in front of their new car building, not in front of their used car department, but in front of their new car building, are various brands and makes that are obviously not new cars.
Mhm.
So you're absolutely right. We have certainly added another 15 to 18,000 independent used car minded operations during the supply chain shortage and the pandemic.
I bet. Which state houses the most independent dealerships? I'm just personal curiosity.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a
Texas, maybe.
yeah,
Man,
it's going to be Texas, it's going to be Florida, and then surprisingly, it's probably going to be New York. So
Okay.
I think between those three,
Virginia.
obviously, yeah, in Virginia, but obviously Texas because of the sheer size of it. You would naturally think that probably California is, but the regulatory environment is obviously a little
Well,
bit more
that's
difficult there.
Right.
And
that's where I
especially
was
when,
going with the question. Yeah, I want to,
yeah,
is it because of the different, regulations coming down from each state that prevents? I know, being in Maryland, there's a handful. It's a small state, but as soon as across the border to West Virginia, and we
yeah,
know everyone knows their West Virginia regulations typically not as tight, but
not as Maryland.
I mean, as soon as you cross the border, it's hundreds of independent dealerships left and right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
kind
really
of,
that almost even goes for Pennsylvania, not as much as you see in West Virginia, but
yeah.
Pennsylvania, at least for many years, it didn't take much to open up a small independent store up there.
And it doesn't. And interesting tidbit. In Pennsylvania, you've got more vehicle service contract providers that are domiciled, that are headquartered in Pennsylvania than any other
Oh,
state. So it's interesting when you look at the regulatory environment. A lot of companies, a lot of entrepreneurships, a lot of probably people listening today are actually domiciled. Their headquarters is domiciled in Delaware just because of the different
yeah.
regulatory environments. The same is true for VSC providers in PA. So it's interesting. You use the analogy about going over the border from Maryland to West Virginia. It's kind of like going over the border. I live here in the Dallas Fort Worth area in Texas. It's kind of like the very first exit that when you cross the border and cross the Red River in Oklahoma are all of these casinos, right? So,
Yeah.
and when you go
Now,
over
now
into
we're talking.
Louisiana, and when you go over Louisiana, it's the same thing. You go over on I-20 and cross over into Shreveport. You got all the casinos, and it's really depending on the regulatory environment, you got the same
Mhm.
thing with with car dealerships as well.
I figured that's what it was. Yep,
Yep.
because I know what it's like to try and open up a business in Maryland, and it's no joke. No joke.
I know what
Even in
it's
my
like to get
hometown.
forms and products approved in the state of Maryland, and it is no joke.
You can get licensed in Maryland. Let's not bash Maryland.
Oh yeah, you can.
You can.
Yeah, just a few more challenges.
It's just
Speaking
a
of
few more hurdles.
challenges,
Yeah.
well, speaking of challenges, what are some of the biggest challenges for independents right now?
Inventory supply. Inventory supply is that's the thing that most dealerships are struggling with today, even today. Now, and it's really about supply. You think about the 2020, 2021, new car sales, about 4.2 million sales fewer than expected. And when you get into the independent space, we're selling used cars. Well, that bubble is floating through, right? And inventory is tough right now in prices. So the prices of the inventory that you can get are going up. So a lot of dealers have had to change the vehicle that they're selling for those reasons. So I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges out there.
Yeah, and I would say probably really closely tied to that, if not directly related to it, would be access to capital, access to not just financing, or not just getting the vehicles bought if you're not a buy here pay here dealer, and even if you are, it's about getting access simply to the capital, but
Mhm.
just the normal capital to be able to to run the day-to-day operations of your store. When we were talking earlier, one of the things that when you think about it, and for startups or smaller entrepreneurs that are probably listening today, they'll probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But when you look at franchise, one of the big differences between franchise and independence that has not changed with the pandemic and with the inventory supply, is the franchise by nature have better access to capital. They have better access to banks. They have better access to the capital markets. They have better access to be able to get funds to be able to run the day-to-day operations. And because they have OEM support, they have a large floor plan line, or whatever the situation may be, they can use their liquid capital in other ways. Well, when you look at an independent store, that to Ben's point earlier, some of them have anywhere from 5 to 30 employees. Some of them only have 2 or 3 employees. When you cut down the volume, right? Which when you cut down the volume, you're cutting down the flow of revenue coming into the store. When you cut that down, it's the difference. It's sometimes the difference between being able to pay the light bill and not being able to pay the light bill, being able to pay the commission or not pay the commission, because you have set your business up on a certain level of expected revenue coming in. And while your gross profits certainly are higher, on a per vehicle basis, the number of vehicles that you're selling is significantly lower, and sometimes those don't even out. And it's become a significant challenge. So I would say access, certainly to capital and to financing, to be able to drive revenue into the door, is another huge challenge that independent dealers are facing right now.
Makes
And
sense.
cost of funds have gone up
Yeah.
this year. Transportation costs are certainly going up this year. And I'm kind of getting back really towards inventory supply. You're having to go further from your footprint in order to purchase the inventory that you want to sell. So transportation costs are going up, ACVs are going up. It's just the whole thing. There are certainly some challenges, but every once in a while we have a fundamental shift in our business model, and we've gone
Yep.
through that over the last couple of years. And you adapt to it. It's not doom and gloom. There's going to be
Not at
some really
all.
good times coming up. We just got to make some adjustments to it. That's all.
Well, the last year is right up until about 2 months ago. It's been good times for a lot of dealers, most
Yep.
profitable times ever.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at least on the
Yeah.
revenue side. Yep.
And
Yeah,
in the
Yep.
last 2 months, it just seems like consumer confidence has flipped a bit.
You know what? It's not just consumer confidence. I think Cox put out their ever since 2017, Q3 of 2017, they've been putting out a dealer sentiment index, and it's a survey of about 1,040 dealers, if I remember correctly. They're split pretty evenly. I think 566 are franchise and the rest are independent. And it's very similar to the consumer sentiment index that economists look at on a day-to-day basis. On are they encouraged by the economy? Are they encouraged by what's happening in the markets? Do they want to go out and spend their money that's sitting in their banks? Whatever the situation may be. The same is true on the dealer sentiment side, and it's reached its lowest level since in the middle of the pandemic. I think the overall dealer sentiment is sitting right around 48%. So for the first time since the middle of the pandemic, you're looking at a dealer body, holistic dealer body that is pessimistic on what's going to happen, in the coming, 3 to 6 to 12 months. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's also a bad thing. I think it forces dealers to be a little bit more cautious, which obviously we know when they become a little bit more cautious, they tend to tighten up a little bit more. They tend to make less decisions on spending capital or in increasing their business or enhancing their business in different ways, whether that's staff, whether that's additional inventory, whether that's additional marketing, whether that's a
Marketing.
new whatever business line.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the challenges are certainly there. The headwinds are certainly there. To Ben's point, it's not all doom and gloom. And specifically, I think for the independent channel, because what happens in a situation like this is, even though you have an inventory crisis and you have a new inventory crisis, but even when you start to look at used vehicles, the number of used vehicles on the market as it is at one of the highest levels it's been in 2.5 years, which kind of surprising to me. But when you start to look at that and you start to look at the dollar amounts that those cars are having to go for, consumers start to tick down, right? Because they start to tick down over the type of vehicle that they're going to buy, the dollar amount that they're going to buy. They might have some financial challenges, which can tend to damage their credit a little bit, and that drives them a little bit more towards sometimes the independent market. And
Yeah.
certainly the type of vehicle that the independent dealer is going to have on their lots, it's going to drive the consumers to those vehicles a little bit more. I'll give you one other economic, because I'm a data freak. I absolutely love looking at the data and the analysis. One of the other things that we pay attention to from an industry insight standpoint is what's the disposable income? How much disposable income is out there sitting in bank accounts, sitting in checking accounts, savings accounts, whatever the situation may be. And that has drastically, when we were going through the height of the pandemic, it was at an all-time high. The average consumer had just over $4,000 liquid sitting in their accounts. Now the average consumer, it's dropped to less than half of what it was at the height of the pandemic. And so that money is starting to dwindle down due to inflation, due to living costs, due to gas costs, all of those different things. So every dollar they spend is extremely important, and they start to kind of pare down on what they look for from a vehicle perspective, and get away from some of the luxuries and get to just basic transportation. I
Well,
just need a vehicle to get me where I need to
yeah,
go.
I mean, well said. And think about what, I mean, Jeff, you kind of said this, alluded to this earlier, but things have been pretty good the last couple of years. Well, think about what's happened over the last couple of years. We had a lot of stimulus money sitting in the households. Not so we had extra money in the households, which Jeremy's stats are confirming, right? More money in the bank, more money in the households. That's gone away earlier this year, for the most part. Not only did we have more money in the households, but we weren't driving as much. So,
Yeah.
we didn't have as much going wrong with the cars. We didn't have as many repairs. We weren't putting as many miles on the vehicles, right? So that added up to a really good couple of years. That's kind of gone away a little bit. And I think to the dealer sentiment piece of it, you couple that with the fact that we've had 5 federal rate hikes this year so far for like 3%, right? You look at inflation rates going up. I think the consumer, what is it, 9.1% for consumer pricing year over year, I believe is the last stat that I saw as of maybe June. So we've had an increase there. Inflation's going up. The average household income has gone up a little bit, but it's like less than 1%. Compare that to inflation. You have fewer. You don't have as much money in the household, right? So dealers are seeing that, and they're getting a little depressed over it. But here's what you got to do, man. Don't get depressed over it. It's okay.
Right.
Reach out, get some help. Pair up with some of the other dealers in the area. Join a 20 group. Get the help that you need. Seek advice. and we'll be able to overcome these challenges. I think all of this
Yeah,
stuff is stuff we can overcome.
Yeah, we've
I
been
think
here
that's a
before.
Yeah, we've been here before. Look at
Unfortunately, a
08.
few times in the last 20 years.
Well, oh 08,
yeah.
oh 09, and 2010. Okay, when you think about 08, 09, and 2010, prior to the pandemic, in the buy here, pay here space, I'm going to speak to what I know. In 2010, prior to the pandemic, was the most profitable year buy here, pay here dealers saw. Well, guess what 2023 is going to be? It's going to be 2010. Okay,
Right.
because prices are going up. Prices are going up. Rates are going up. So what does that do? Well, that means so rates are going up at the same time that charge off is going up. So what does that do for the appetite for the third party lender? And I'm talking again in the buy here, pay here space. But you think about that, margins are squeezing, right? Buy here, pay here, and lease here, pay here. It is a really good time to get into that market right now if you're not in
Yeah.
that market, because margins are squeezing, which means that that customer who had access to maybe more prime or subprime credit doesn't now, because the third party lenders are all going to tighten up. Retail dealers just got to make some adjustments to it. That's all you're going to have to do. But on the buy here, pay here, lease here, pay here side, man, it is a really good time to get into this business. Don't be depressed.
And I think that's a phenomenal point because the natural inclination that we have when we go through things like this is out really kind of outside of our industry, but the natural inclination is to hunker down, right? Let's work, let's
Mhm.
focus on every dollar, let's hunker down, let's not think outside of the box, let's not do this. I would argue that that's the opposite of what we actually need to do, and that's really kind of where NIADA comes into play and where trade associations really come into play is, to Ben's point, joining 20 groups, going to, conventions or meetings or utilizing your state associations and your national association to be able to start to think of ways to enhance your business, ways to think outside of the box, ways
Yeah,
to change with the times.
Jeremy, we
And
think
look,
we
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 think
we
we're
live in
alone
a
sometimes, right? We think that we're alone. To your point, what
right.
happens is we get in our bubble and we start thinking that we're alone, and you're not alone. Good, sorry to
Right.
interrupt you there, but
No,
I
no,
know
no,
you were
you're
on.
good. No, no, no. That's that's a phenomenal point.
Yeah,
But and really the crutch of what I was the point I was trying to make, which is, let's get out there and use the resources that are, that dealers have. And again, that's one of the big benefits of NIADA with our national corporate sponsorships, with our 20 groups, with our meetings and conventions, is we partner and spend a lot of human capital to understand what is out there that can benefit the independent dealer and how do we get that in front of them so that they can make the choice on whether or not they want to use that in their business. It's not our decision, or we don't look at it as though it's our decision to be able to say, hey, you need to do this. We look at it as though it's our job to go out there and educate them and say, here are the resources you have available to you. Pick and choose what's going to work best for you in your particular circumstance.
Ben, you hit on something interesting when you talked about the last recession and coming back from that in 2010. Another thing that, and I'm not sure about this because I was a car dealer in 2010 and now I'm a vendor. So there's different ways of looking at cash and liquidity. So in my business now, we count on investors and things like that. So you think of these companies like Carvana, Vroom, Tesla, they're all working off of investor money and investor capital. And one of the things that I heard recently is, and saw this leading up to the current situation we're in now, economically, is there was a lot of investor capital that was in a position to make investments, hedge funds, and all sorts of things like that, that didn't get those, they sort of closed down a little bit before things happened. And that money's still there.
yeah,
So how long are these guys going to be able to sit there with all that cash, and their investors who are expecting returns on, what they've put into these funds? How long are they
yeah.
going to ride this thing out? And, a year from now, could the capital markets really explode?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal point because you said it yourself, Alex, which is the investors are going to expect a return on their money. At the end of the day, those capital markets, the hedge funds, the private equity firms, the investors into these companies, they're not built to sit on their money. That's not how they're built. They're not
Mm-mm.
built to not use and grow their money. So they will only tolerate it for so long before they say, we've got to take some massive risk because we're not seeing any return. We're not even seeing a small return. We're not seeing any return. And really, what it's doing by sitting in the bank or sitting in the open market is losing money, as opposed to investing it into an organization that has a strategy, has a business plan, has the capability to go out there and tap into new markets or new business lines.
Expand
So
their
the
business, buying
Yeah,
Yeah.
expand their
dealerships.
business. And,
Yeah.
and I think that that's just a phenomenal point that you make, which is, I think we're pretty much on the tail end of them being patient, because those are not patient people. You think car dealers are not patient?
Yeah.
Hedge fund and private equity firms are not patient people.
Yeah. Well, things are happening quickly, and as they tend to do, in our industry, right? But things are happening quickly. Stimulus money went away. Prices, vehicle prices. I'm starting to see, and I'm starting to hear from a lot of dealers that prices are starting to soften,
Yep.
just a little bit. We're
Little
rolling
bit.
into tax season, so even in the best of times, tax season is going to drive prices up a little bit. I think a lot of the people that I've talked to. I think I saw a question pop up earlier about maybe inventory prices and
Here,
when
we'll
it's
throw
gonna.
that back up there.
Yeah. So most of the people I'm talking to are thinking second quarter of 2023 we're going to start being seeing a shift back. I've seen predictions as high as 25 and 30%. Don't I think that is so far off.
Yeah.
I don't think it's even close. Cox, I saw a report from Cox, and this is the report that I tend to believe. It's 2 to 3% is what they're thinking they're going to see a correction, which is good for the buy here pay here folks who have their portfolio out there. So what that means is your portfolio isn't going to lose its value by 20% overnight as prices start shifting back, right? So I think that's a really good thing for you. But I think we're starting to see a little bit of a soften there, and that's a good thing for us as we move into 2023.
So, any predictions on damage from Hurricane Ian impacting some of the southern auctions and markets?
Yeah, I
Man,
think I think from my perspective, I think the predictions are really going to be, number one, first and foremost. Our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers go out to everybody that is certainly affected by Hurricane Ian. NIADA also has a nonprofit foundation, and we're actively working with Florida, the state of Florida, and the Florida Independent Auto Dealers Association to be able to create a disaster relief fund, to help independent dealers and their families. But to specifically answer your question about forecast, obviously the biggest concerns that always are the concerns anytime something big like this happens. We saw it in Texas, we saw it in Louisiana, we saw it in Georgia over the really last 4 or 5 years. Is to ensure that we're watching the inventory, and that we're
Mhm.
ensuring that inventory is not going to get through. And I think Carfax and AutoCheck and the vehicle history reports do a much better job of that now, to be able to alert dealers of the potential that this could have been involved in a natural disaster. So I think that's something that we continue to have to watch,
yeah,
from a forecast perspective. Look, I think the last number I looked at was, the estimate is about 1.2 to 1.4 million vehicles that are going to be totaled out, but
Wow.
as a result of Hurricane Ian. And so that means that 1.2 to 1.4 million people are going to be flooding into the market to be able to look
Mhm.
for replacement vehicles. And so I think what we're going to see from my semi-educated data analysis. I think what we're going to see is, we're going to see, at least in the southern region, the southeastern region, we're going to see a tick up in vehicle in auction prices. and potentially spread over into other regions. We're going to see a tick back up in vehicle valuations or vehicle values at auctions, because we're going to go into a demand issue. And while we certainly have the supply, it's still going to be a bigger demand. So I think you're going to see a small increase in vehicle values or auction values as they start to go through. But you're also going to see a subsequent increase in vehicle demand and in vehicle sales in the coming 4 or 6 months, at the most. And then I think you're going to start to see it level off. And I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a fairly drastic correction in the market for that small tick up, and then it's going to tick right back down to where it would have been if Hurricane Ian had potentially never happened.
Yeah, you guys remember Harvey a few years back? Was that 17? I think it was. I can tell you, as it went through Texas, just tons of dealers were impacted, and that
Yeah.
I think Jeremy might have mentioned this earlier. But what you really have to watch for is you got to watch for water damage. So make sure that you got a really good inspection process. I would strongly recommend people are getting, you want to have some kind of insurance in place when you're making your purchase, so that you can return vehicles if you need to. But you need to have a really good inspection process when you get the car on your lot. Make sure you're looking through it. You're looking for signs of water damage. Super important, because I can tell you, after you sell that car, water damage is going to be a problem for you. All right, it's going to be a problem for you and the consumer. So that would be something I'd really watch out for.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Never a shortage of challenges, but definitely always never a shortage of opportunities either.
Well,
Mhm.
speaking of opportunities, so for the independents specifically, the challenge. I mean, everybody's fighting at the auction with Carvana and Vroom. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's mainly because of their model. They're running on investor money that had an endless bottom for a while. But is there anything that the independents can be doing better to attract customers, create those
Yeah,
opportunities?
yeah, I think so. We've talked about this a couple different times. The last couple of years have been really good, right? So what do we do? What's normal human nature when things are really good, right? Is we get a little fat, right? We get a
What
little.
are you trying to say, Ben? What are you trying to say?
Well, yeah, well, I mean,
January is around the corner. You can start your New Year
it's a
diet then.
good thing we're just seeing your head. That's what I was saying. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, hey, listen, we do. We get a little fat and happy about what's going on, and you know, we we take our eye off the ball a little bit, right? But
Mhm.
here's the thing: it doesn't mean we don't remember how to play the game. It just means we got to get back into the game a little bit. Okay, so what can we do to attract more customers? Well, I think first and foremost, we've got to remember this is a customer relationship business, and we can't. We're all shifting towards digital. It's smart. Okay, it's a good way. It's you can good economy of scale there. You can reach out to your customers and much more efficiently than you could back in the days. We need to do that, but we've got to maintain that customer relationship. So I think that's super important. I think we need to move towards some digital marketing strategies. I've heard from some representatives from Google recently, and I can tell you there's so much that we need to learn and that we need to perfect on how we're reaching our marketplace and how we can get quality leads into our dealerships. So I think you've got to, those are some things that you can do. Make sure that you've got a good, strong online presence. Remember that I don't know about you guys. I think you guys were dealers in the past for the most part. I think you said that, and
Jeff
you know,
still is.
Jeff
okay,
still
there.
is. Yeah.
So Jeff, you pull onto your lot and you got a hole on the front lot, right? What did that just blow your mind? I'd be like, oh, somebody get a car out there. This is crazy, right? Because we're trying to
Oh yeah.
merchandise our front lot. Well, your online inventory now has become your front lot, right? So
Mhm.
make sure you've got pictures up. Make sure you've done your due diligence there. That your vehicles look professionally marketed and merchandised online. That's what consumers are looking for. Make sure your reviews are strong and you've got a good review process in place. I think those are things you can do really to attract good customers. You can combat some of the higher pricing with better controls on the back end when you're doing your reconditioning. You can bring ACVs down a little bit. Maybe you don't have to raise your pricing quite as much and still be able to get your grosses out there what you want, right? Some things we can
Well,
do.
and I think that there's in addition to all of those, because I think all of those are extremely important and valid. I think you also have to really kind of look at who you're competing against, right? You know who you're competing for, but you also have to look at who you're competing against, right? And you're competing, number one, against a reputation. Let's face it, this entire business has a horrible reputation. I say this all the time, but there was a study that was done. What are the three most hated professions in the world? Number one's an attorney, number two is a dentist, and number three is a car salesperson, right? So we're right up there with dentists and attorneys on who people want to deal with in the world. So making sure that your reputation is, and that your online reputation is important, like Ben said. Making sure that you stand your vehicles tall, and that includes maybe kind of thinking outside of the box and participating in some things that maybe you haven't done or didn't know were available to you as an independent dealer, like a certified pre-owned program. Look, CPO programs were forever just allocated to the OEMs and to the franchise
Mm-hmm.
stores. Well, now now we have an NIADA branded CPO program that comes with a digital inspection via Carketa. And it really allows you to make sure that, number one, you are putting a quality product out on the street. You are putting it out there to be able to be a quality product, to be able to sell to the consumer, that you can stand behind. Comes with a guarantee for the consumer to give them confidence in the car buying experience. And it really starts to open up the world a little bit more of consumer base for you to start to attract, because now when people search for those certified pre-owned vehicles, now all of a sudden, because you have a certified pre-owned program, you're able to attract those consumers, and at least get your name out there and get them looking at your inventory, and getting them to start to kind of change the mindset of being able to go and engage you in having that vehicle. I think the other thing that you got to do is, prior to all of that stuff, you got to look for new ways to get inventory, because, as we mentioned, look, franchise stores have access to more capital. That means they can go up there and keep their hand at raised in the lane, or digitally, or in person. They can keep their hand raised, and they can afford to pay a little bit more for the vehicle. So you got to relook at your inventory model. You've got to ensure that what you're getting is going to attract the customers that you want, going to set the reputation that you want, and that you need to find new ways of, whether you're going to ACV auctions, to online auctions, to be able to look whether or not you're going into lanes at Manheim or Odessa, or whether or not you're even going direct to consumer and looking at Facebook Marketplace on consumers that are selling their vehicles. There's a story today. We have a newsletter that goes out every day called the Daily Independent, and one of the articles that we put in there is that Carzai debuts a consumer to dealer auction site. So think about that for just a second. A consumer to dealer auction site completely flipped the pendulum, right? So now
Mm-hmm.
consumers can go out there and put their vehicles on an auction site where dealers can actually bid on those vehicles. Now, you got to be able to do your due diligence, ensure that you're getting a good vehicle, have some type of insurance guarantee to make sure that you're not going from their problem to your problem. But you've got to kind of start to think out of the normal swim lanes, if you will, on ways that you can get inventory. And that's just one thing that is out there. Doesn't mean that it's something that you're going to do, but is it worth the look to be able to go and see if it's a potential source of additional inventory for you? And so I think you got
Yeah,
to really start to look at those avenues.
there's a lot of dealers going consumer direct right now. It's a lot of different. I hadn't heard of this, of the auction you're talking about. I haven't had a chance to read that article yet today, so I'll be interested to jump into that and take a look at it. But consumer direct is definitely a good way to go. Um, I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that our dealers can do to attract customers, but making sure you have a strong reputation, making sure you're standing tall with your inventory online, and on your lot. I think those are doing the right things, staying compliant, don't be a stain on the community, be a positive influence on the community.
Right.
Those are the things that our consumers really care about, and um, so.
Do you guys, as an organization, do you work with the dealerships? I assume you probably run maybe some of your own 20 groups. Or do you get with the dealerships? What I found in the past is you've got different vendors out there that really cater to the franchise dealership. And for whatever reason, at least from my experience, they sort of forget about the independent dealership when it comes down to different services, whether it's digital or process, whatever it may be. Do you guys sort of I want to say maybe filter or go out and build different relationships with maybe some of these vendors that
Yeah.
initially was on the more focused towards the franchise dealers,
Yeah.
and like, look, man, you got 40,000 independent dealerships here that could
Absolutely.
be using
Yeah,
this type
Yeah.
of service.
A-
Especially,
ab-
you touched, Ben, on reputation, digital marketing. You said you've got an alliance there with Google. Are these some of the different services that you offer to the dealerships?
Yeah, so part of our 20 group program, you mentioned 20 groups. So I'll speak about 20 groups, and then I'll turn it over to Jeremy, and he can speak a little bit about the association as a whole, because I think both entities do a really good job of bringing those vendors in that wouldn't otherwise be able to sit in front of our independent dealers. The When it comes to 20 groups, 20 groups are really cool. Franchise has 20 groups, right? And uh, we do something very similar for the independent dealer. You get 15 to 20 dealers in a room, and we're going to talk through KPIs and really kind of dig into their businesses. But what it's mostly about is it's about the dealers being able to kind of help each other through whatever challenges that are coming up. And every time we plan one of these meetings and we get with the dealers, we'll bring in a certain vendor. They'll invite a special guest. So this Google representative that I mentioned a few minutes ago was one of my dealers. Works with these representatives on a monthly basis, and they're their reps. Well, they came in, did a 2 hour training education session for my dealers in the room. Just fantastic. Everybody walked away with just a ton of knowledge that they hadn't had when they come into the room. We do things like that with financial planning, even some succession strategy, things along those lines, marketing, digital marketing, reconditioning, all that type of stuff. So we're bringing in all kinds of vendors from the 20 group side. And I think Jeremy, it looks like Jeremy's itching to talk about
Well,
the association. He's bouncing up and down.
yeah, I think I think because it's important to understand that the 20 group part of NIADA builds off of the partnerships that we build at the at the association level. So one of the advantages of our 20 group program within NIADA is that we have all of these what we call NPCs, or NCPs, national corporate sponsor or partnerships, and they are companies that we've vetted, companies that either we have gone to or that they have come to us and said, "Hey, we have a product or a service to be able to offer specifically to independent dealers." We review it, we look at it, and we enter into a partnership agreement where we can ultimately be able to put these people in front of, whether it's our 20 group program, whether it's at our meetings and events, our national convention, our buy here pay here super forum, whatever the situation may be. But you're absolutely right, Jeff. When I was a franchise dealer, I had probably, if probably at least five vendors or partners try to walk through to my door every single day to get FaceTime with me, to be able to sell me some type of product or service. And I know you do as well, and Alex, you do or did when you were on the dealer side. But when I ran my independent store, when I ran my independent
Yeah.
lot, if I had one or two a week, it was a busy week. They tend to shy away from that independent dealer, except for the ones that obviously are specifically focused on the independent channel. And that's one of the benefits that we have as the association is we're able to vet a lot of those to ensure that that we can put them in front of our over 14,000 plus members, in front of our 20 group members, and be able to say, hey, These are people that we've vetted. These are companies that we've vetted. You choose whether or not you want to do business with them, but if you do, understand that we've vetted them and that they do provide a significant value to the independent channel.
You mentioned the Buy Here Pay Here Super Forum. Isn't that coming up soon?
It is. It is indeed in Austin.
What's the lowdown on that?
Yeah, so NIDA does three different events a year. We do our national convention in June. We do our national policy conference, what I talked about a little bit earlier, in September in Washington D.C. And then we do a Buy Here Pay Here Super Forum, which is specifically for dealers that are either currently in Buy Here Pay Here operations, or to Ben's point earlier, are thinking that now is the time for them to get into Buy Here Pay Here operations. And it is an expo and a show with education sessions to be able to come and learn all of the ins and outs from not just vendors and partners, but the majority of our education sessions this year are actually led by dealers who are doing this every single day, sharing their best practices, sharing what's made them successful, sharing things maybe that they've tripped up on throughout their business deal. We've got Bill and Ben. Bill is another one of our 20 group moderators that specializes in Buy Here, Pay Here. They're doing an entire business operations, Buy Here, Pay Here business operations workshop that I'll let him talk about here in just a couple of seconds. We have ComplyNet doing a safeguards workshop on the new FTC safeguards rule that it goes into effect on December 9th. And the intent of all of this is really to be able to walk away from these workshops with tangible in-hand ideas or a business plan or operations changes that you can walk away and start to input into your Buy Here, Pay Here operations. It's going to be in Austin, Texas, November 9th through 11th at the Hilton downtown. You can go to buyherepayheresuperforum.com to register and see the agenda, see the keynote speakers, see Ben's pretty face and his brother Bill's pretty face on the business operations workshop. But it's a super exciting event specifically for the Buy Here Pay Here channel, which to Ben mentioned earlier, 54% roughly of the independent dealerships that are out there are Buy Here Pay Here dealers. So it's a huge portion of the business. But I definitely want Ben to talk about the business operations portion that he's going to be doing with Bill.
Well, I'll tell. Here's what I'm going to start with. If you are Buy Here, Pay Here, or Lease Here, Pay Here, or if you are thinking about being Buy Here, Pay Here, or Lease Here, Pay Here, you need to be at this. You need to be at this event. This is a fantastic event. I've been a part of this agenda.
Even franchise dealers, right?
Well, yeah, there's going to be something for everyone at this event. And I've been a part of putting this agenda together. And Janet Stouderman, she's done a fantastic job of really reaching out. She's our director of education. She's done a fantastic job of putting this thing together for us and helping us kind of coordinate everything. I'm super excited about the agenda. We've got a lot of really great speakers. To Jeremy's point earlier, they're dealers who are going to be speaking to the things that are important to other dealers. I'm excited about that. So talking about the workshops, day one, here's what you're going to get from this. Day one, you're going to get to walk in. We got 3 different tracks, and we've got a half-day workshop. That's a workshop. This isn't a seminar. This isn't a presentation. I'm not going to be up there telling you what you need to do. This is going to be a hands-on, one-on-one type of deal where we're going to be working through a business operations plan. We got a marketing track where they're going to be working through a digital marketing plan with you. And then we have the safeguards track where you're going to be working through actually putting together a plan in order to stay compliant and have the ongoing training that you need in order to stay compliant with the safeguards rule that's coming up. I think Jeremy mentioned
it's
December
worth
9th.
going for that alone.
Well, those 3
Right.
things, I want you to think about those 3 things. How much would you pay to have independence, have someone come out and go through? So on a business operations side,
$15,000.
Right, exactly.
I'm looking at it.
Right.
Yeah. So on the business operations side, we're going to go through collections practices, which is, specific to Buy Here, Pay Here. We're going to go through collections practices. You're going to walk out of there with scripting and call flows. We're going to go through sales process from beginning to end. You're going to walk out of there with an actual sales process plan from beginning to end of the customer journey. Then we're going to go into reconditioning and walk out of there on the recon side with a 10-step process in order to help your efficiencies. I mean, this is some really cool stuff, and it's very valuable. That's just on the business operations side, not to mention the fact that you get to see my pretty face and Bill's pretty face, to quote Jeremy. I would prefer to use handsome, but whatever.
I chose pretty for a reason.
Okay. And then,
sorry, I want to interrupt you there because you asked the question about how much will it cost to at least get an idea of how your business is set up for the FTC rules that are coming in December. And again, it's $15,000. We've been shopping around looking at a few different companies that offer checks. They go in and they look at what you're doing. They test your compliances and everything like that. And that doesn't include anything that you want to spend on your lawyer to make sure that your translation of what you think the FTC is saying is going to hold up and what your lawyer thinks he can defend you with and all those other things. Yeah, it's very expensive.
Alex, you're spot on. And guys, if you get onto the Buy Here, Pay Here Super Forum site, you click on the agenda, there's a list of the things you're going to get out of this safeguard workshop that you're going to be able to take back to your dealership. And it's pretty extensive, and it's Compliance putting the training on, and they do a fantastic job with it. I'm excited about day one's workshops. Between that, the digital marketing and the business ops side, that's a lot of value for you. And frankly, I would bring multiple people from your dealerships. I would have someone from your business ops side sitting through that workshop. I'd have someone from your compliance side sitting through the safeguard workshop, and obviously someone from your marketing side sitting through the digital marketing piece of it. Then you get into more of your traditional style convention. We've got, I think, 15 breakout sessions planned. We've got 6 plenary sessions planned with, where everyone's going to be speaking, just high level speakers, Ken Shilson, people who are just really industry experts. The expo is sold out. We've got all kinds of vendors. You asked about vendors earlier. We've got all kinds of vendors coming in. You get to come up, ask the different questions that you have with your vendor, kind of learn what's new, what's cutting edge right now, what's working from the people who are actually, doing it. And then we've got
don't forget.
I was about to say the finance fair. Yeah, the finance fair. You get to sit with your. We talked about capital earlier, right? So you get to sit with the capital providers and talk through some things with those. It's a fantastic few days. We've got some really, really good content. I'm super excited about it. I know I kind of perked up there. So
and there's the other pretty face who just typed up that question and put
Bill,
the website in there. So
yeah, good old Billy.
Well, and you guys, we've got some ads over on DealerRefresh, and we'll be adding those links as well to the recorded version of this over in the DealerRefresh forums. It sounds awesome. I'll be honest with you, I didn't realize you guys did so much for the independent dealerships. That's great.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that we have to get better at, right? Is exactly that, and that's one of the reasons that we're excited for the partnership with DealerRefresh and many other partnerships. Is getting out there and ensuring that the independent dealer world does know, and franchise dealers who are involved in used car operations do understand everything that NIADA brings to the table for them, what membership brings to them, what the 20 groups bring to them, what the education brings to them, partnerships, all of those different things. We've got a ton to offer, and we're going to continue to work on that and continue to build off of the already solid foundation that we have as an association.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Just to end it on this question, we're coming up on the hour. Unless Alex, you had something else, but I just want to ask, with everything that's going on, where do you see the independent dealership? What is the future of the independent dealership? Where do you see them in the next 3 to 5 and maybe even 10 years out?
I'll quote just about every single president who's ever done a State of the Union address and say that the state of our industry is strong, right? Or the state of our union is strong. You know,
Yeah, when you
obviously I
put it
say
like
that.
that, it doesn't sound genuine. I'm just saying.
I know, right?
We need a
Especially
different
when I
read
relate
right
it,
there.
Don't
especially
y'all
when I
work
relate
with the
it to
politicians?
politics.
You know what they're doing.
Yeah.
No, I think I think look, you the state of the industry, the state of the independent industry. I agree exactly with what Ben has been saying, which is that 2023 is really going to be another
Mhm.
2010. For buy here, pay here dealers, for the independent used car side. We can sit here and we can point to all of the different headwinds that are out there, and yet every single time this industry, and specifically the independent industry and buy here pay here, have been presented with headwinds like this or greater, we have excelled. We have grown, we have excelled, we have been resilient, and we expect that the same is going to be true. And all of the industry data that we look at every single day and the conversations that we have with our dealers, they're while they're cautious, they're cautiously optimistic about what the future
Mhm.
holds. And we are too. And that's why I think one of our biggest messages from an association standpoint is don't retreat, right? Don't sit back and wait for it to pass. Now is the time to engage. Now is the time to
Yeah.
put yourself out there. Now is the time to go and explore new ways to either attract your customers, expand your business, get into a different portion of your business, and to continue to focus on processes and procedures. Now is the time to really focus on that, because it's going to set you up for some monumental success that we believe the industry is going to see over the next 2 to really 5 years.
Yeah, every decade, every couple decades, we have a fundamental shift in our industry, and we're going through that now. The pandemic taught us so many lessons that we probably all thought were good ideas before the pandemic, but there's no way we were going to try them, right? Like remote deliveries, what?
And
Right?
dealerships always need to be pushed over the edge.
Yeah, so we got forced into it. Remote workforce, online sales presence,
Right.
all
Mhm.
of that stuff we had to do during the pandemic. And we need to be forward thinking. And here's what happens when you have these shifts in our industry, you've got some folks who may not have the stomach for it, right? And hey, listen, that's okay. But then you've got some folks who are going to be like, man, I might be the little guy right now, but guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to seize this opportunity and I'm going to move forward. And man, I am going to kill it, right? And you will. And if you become part of an association, I don't mean to sound like a sales pitch or anything, but become part of an association. Find other dealers who are like minded and have similar goals to yourself, because two heads are always better than one. And when you guys start collaborating together instead of working against each other, man, the future is super bright. I think for the folks in our industry.
That
I
is a
would
good
agree.
one to end on,
Yeah,
Ben.
you got that
Yeah,
right.
great, great.
And we look forward to future episodes with NIADA. And thank you
For
both
sure.
for making a great introduction to the relationship. So
Alex,
Yeah,
Jeff,
really
thanks for
appreciate it.
setting
having
the
us.
bar high, guys.
We're excited for it.
Yeah, thanks for having
Awesome,
us. I
man.
appreciate it.
Well,
All
thank you
right.
so
Well, you
much.
guys have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care, everybody.
Uh huh.